So I saw the fight last night, Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia, and a couple things. First of all, comes across, everybody's got um, Errol Spence Jr. as one of the pound per pound best in the world, and I'm sorry, I regard him highly as a fighter, and but I compare him to Tim Duncan. See, Tim Duncan was not a flashy basketball player. What he had was one of the most fundamentally sound basketball players of the modern era. He was not flashy, but he will get you every time with fundamental basketball. That's what Errol Spence has. He's strong. He is very, very highly sound as a fundamental boxing practitioner. That's what Errol Spence has. He's not the super fighter or a extremely super talented, flashy fighter that Floyd Mayweather was. But he has good power. He has extremely sound fundamental boxing skills. And when you say that, underneath that fundamentally sound, I'm on the treadmill, and I got asthma, so bear with me. So when I say that fundamentally sound, meaning he is a by the book combination puncher. He works the body extremely well. He has high output of punches. He has a good chin. He has good defense. Notice I say good because he's not the most fundamentally defensive guy out there. But just because his stance and his defense and his delivery of punches is so fundamentally sound, he doesn't get wild. All right. So that opens the door for him to be classified as fundamentally sound, very high level boxing practitioner. That's why he beats people. And he's extremely well conditioned and he's a gifted athlete. But as far as being the super boxer that people, some people in the boxing world classify him as, he's not. Now that doesn't take away from the fact that he is very effective, because boxing, when you practice it, it's fundamentally sound. It makes it very hard, for you to beat a person who is a fundamentally sound, very, very sound boxer like Errol Spence Jr. is. And he does have killer instincts. Now, how do you beat him? It's not a science. First of all, but I guess you could say it's street science. Yeah, I get it. But it's basic. How do you beat a southpaw? With your right hand, straight right, in angles. Now, why didn't Danny showed him? Danny showed a lot of angles. Now, Danny is an elite fighter. But I'm going to come out and say it. Danny is on the small side of 140, of 147. At 140, he's a killer. But fighting at 147, he's on the small side for the people that are out there. Now, can he beat? Yes. One of the reasons, and let me tell you something, Danny hit him with some shots that he hasn't been hit before. It's just that Danny is naturally a counterpuncher, Danny Garcia. Now, I've said this for a few fights now. Danny should have changed trainers a long time ago. I know his father loved him, I know his father's part of the duo, the dynamic duo. You know, he sells the fights really well. But if I was Danny's father, I would step away, say, son, I would have stepped away five fights ago. And I'll just be the hype man for him and sell his fights. Let somebody else bring a little bit more aggressiveness to Danny's repertoire. You know, could Danny have beat Spence if he had another trainer that focused more on aggressiveness, like Robert Garcia? Yes, he could have. You know, I think Danny needs to go and talk to Freddie Roach, because first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but the few times Danny hit Errol to the body good, and Errol got on his bicycle for a few rounds and even started jumping backwards like that, trying to avoid getting hit to the body, because Danny hurt him a couple times. He hurt him and he clipped him, just clipped him a little bit, and you could see him wobble a little bit. So Danny's got power. Old Danny's got another 4 years. Another 4 years fighting, maybe 3-4 years. I would go with another trainer that focuses more on aggressiveness. Other than, and I know that Danny is a counterpuncher by nature, but he also is a very, very capable puncher. So, is that going to happen? Is he going to go all of a sudden and try another trainer? I don't think so, but it's something to think about. Look what happened to Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto's career was almost pretty much done. He went with Freddie, who focused more on bull Cotto style, you know, bull aggressiveness. And Cotto had a second win to his career because he went with Freddie, and Freddie sharpened or capitalized on Cotto's aggressiveness. Cotto's a converted southpaw, so he focused more on Cotto's left hook. So all in all, it was a good fight. The reason I think Danny was not more competitive is because he has his father in his corner that did not, and I've never seen his father tell him, hey, you need a knockout, or you need to be more aggressive, or come out and bring it, take him to deep water. Never seen him do that. And Danny does have good wind, you know, good physical, stamina. So all in all, it was a good fight. But I keep saying, Errol Spence, the fact that his style is not flashy, and is the thing that makes him really good, makes him really, not really, but somewhat bland and mundane. Because when you see him, you don't see, he is a thud in his punches and stuff, but he's not a flashy fighter. Like I said, he's a fundamentally sound. It's like watching Tim Duncan play basketball and score right in your face, and then watching Michael Jordan play, and you're like, Jesus, everybody wants to watch Michael Jordan. People don't want to watch necessarily Tim Duncan, unless you want to learn how to play real fundamental basketball, which is the basis for all basketball. So who do we need right now? It's really simple, you know. Bud Crawford needs to fight. What's his name? Errol Spence Jr. And just between me and you, Bud Crawford will clean his clock. Why? Because, and we just saw it last night, Errol Spence Jr. has a problem with angles, and he has a problem with punches in between punches. And Danny showed it last night. He clocked him a bunch of times with punches between punches. It's just that Danny didn't crank and didn't hustle enough. And he played the sit back, catch and shoot game, and he was somewhat successful at it. But if Danny had turned it into more aggressive fight instead of waiting for uh, for Spence to throw so he could catch and shoot, or just do the right overhand over a straight left from Spence, we would have had another fight. And I think Danny could have beat him at that. It's just that the style that Danny, has pushed is it's not the style that can beat Spence. Styles makes fights. So I think Crawford will clean his clock in the middle rounds. I think Manny Pacquiao will knock Errol Spence Jr. even at 40-something. Manny Pacquiao will clean his clock. Manny Pacquiao is a consummate punch between punch artist, and he punches hard. He's never been in the speed. It's outrageous. He's still super fast, and he can clock at 147. I think Manny will knock him out or hurt him bad. You'll see Spence get on his bicycle if he fights Manny Pacquiao. He's not going to get in there and trade once Pacquiao hits him with a couple of the power jabs he throws after throwing a straight left. And it's just in the awkward angles Manny throws at, you don't see it coming. You don't expect a human being to be able to punch like that and with that power at that angle. It's just, he's a freak. So, who do I want to see next? And Pacquiao. But, one of the two, Pacquiao or Crawford. But nobody's talking about the monster in the division. The one who will clean all the clocks, even Pacquiao. His name is Virgil Ortiz Jr. Virgil Ortiz Jr. will knock them all out. Okay? And he's under Robert Garcia's stable. So when this kid comes up for a championship fight, Virgil Ortiz Jr., he's going to fuck them all up. Virgil Ortiz Jr. will clean all the clocks and go home and eat some tacos.